It's 2 a.m., you're asleep, your city is quiet. Then, without warning, a wall of water, 20 stories tall, comes roaring towards you at 60 miles per hour. No time to run, no time to call anyone. The roads are already gone. That quote not a movie. That's not a disaster simulation. That is the very real scenario that engineers, geologists, and national security experts have been quietly debating for years. And it all comes down to one structure, sitting on the other side of the planet, that could reshape global civilization if it ever fails. This is the Three Gorges Dam. Let's start with the basics, because the scale of this thing is genuinely hard to wrap your head around. The Three Gorges Dam sits on the Yangtze River in central China, the longest river in Asia and the third longest in the entire world. The dam stretches nearly 1.5 miles wide and stands over 600 feet tall. That's taller than the Washington Monument. It holds back a reservoir that is roughly 400 miles long, about the distance from New York City to just past Boston, and contains over 39 trillion liters of water. The dam took 17 years to build. It displaced over 1.2 million people, and it cost the Chinese government approximately $37 billion, though many independent estimates put the true cost far higher when you factor in the human and environmental toll. So, why build something like this? 2 reasons: electricity and flood control. The dam generates an almost incomprehensible amount of electricity, roughly 100 billion kilowatt hours per year. To give you a comparison, that's equivalent to burning about 50 million tons of coal annually. It powers factories, cities, hospitals, and homes across an enormous swath of China. And for a country with a population of 1.4 billion people and the world's second largest economy, that power is not optional. It is essential. But here's where the story gets complicated. In 2020, a group of American engineers did something interesting. They pulled up satellite imagery of the Three Gorges Dam and started measuring. What they found alarmed them. Portions of the dam appeared to show signs of what engineers call deformation, subtle shifts in the structure that, on a dam of this size, are not supposed to happen. Photos circulated online showing what appeared to be a slight curve in what should have been a perfectly straight concrete wall. Chinese authorities immediately pushed back. They called the images misleading. They called the analysis politically motivated, and they released their own data showing the dam was structurally sound. But here's the thing. This isn't the first time serious questions have been raised. For decades, engineers and geologists have warned about multiple compounding risks. First, sedimentation. The Yangtze River carries enormous amounts of silt. That silt is supposed to flow downstream, but the dam traps it. Over time, this reduces the reservoir's capacity and increases pressure on the dam's structure. Chinese engineers have tried to manage this with controlled releases, but it's an ongoing battle they may be slowly losing. Second, seismic activity. The weight of 39 trillion liters of water pressing down on the Earth does something. Scientists call it reservoir-induced seismicity. Essentially, the dam is so heavy it can trigger earthquakes. Since the reservoir filled, the surrounding region has experienced a significant uptick in minor seismic events. Most are small, but most is not all. Third, extreme weather. Climate change is rewriting the rules of rainfall in Asia. In 2020, China experienced some of the worst flooding in its recorded history. The Yangtze Basin received rainfall at levels that hadn't been seen in decades. The Three Gorges Dam was pushed to, and some reports suggest beyond, its intended limits. Water had to be released at emergency rates downstream, while inflow from upstream was still surging. Officials admitted the dam was operating under extraordinary stress. Okay, so let's talk about what nobody wants to talk about directly. What actually happens if the Three Gorges Dam fails? Analysts and hydrological engineers have modeled this scenario. The results are, to put it mildly, catastrophic. Hour 1 to 3. The immediate downstream target is Yichang, a city of roughly 4 million people sitting just below the dam. Flood modeling suggests the city could be submerged within hours. The speed of a dam break flood on this scale would be so sudden, so overwhelming, that conventional emergency evacuation would be essentially impossible. Hour 3 to 6. The floodwaters would continue downstream toward Wuhan, a city of 12 million people that most Americans now know from a very different kind of global crisis. Wuhan sits in a basin. It has limited natural elevation to shield it. Hospitals, transit infrastructure, residential towers, all of it would be in the path of the surge. Hour 6 to 24. Further downstream lies Nanjing and eventually Shanghai, home to 26 million people and one of the most economically vital port cities on the planet. Shanghai handles roughly $2 trillion in trade annually. The city sits at low elevation at the mouth of the Yangtze. If the floodwaters reach it with sufficient force, the financial consequences alone would send shockwaves through every economy on Earth, including ours. Some models suggest a worst-case Three Gorges failure could put over 400 million people in the flood impact zone, either directly flooded or cut off from power, supply chains, and infrastructure. To put that in perspective, that is more than the entire population of the United States. Here, quote S, something that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. NASA published findings suggesting that when the Three Gorges Reservoir was filled, the redistribution of that much mass, moving water from the ocean and river system into a fixed inland location, actually had a measurable effect on the rotation of the Earth. The day got slightly longer, by a tiny fraction of a millisecond, but longer nonetheless. This isn't science fiction, this is basic physics. Shift enough mass on a rotating body, and you change how it spins. We're talking about a human-built structure with enough mass to affect planetary rotation. Let that sink in for a second. In September 2023, 2 dams failed in Derna, Libya. They weren't nearly as large as the Three Gorges Dam. They weren't holding back anywhere near as much water, but when they broke, in the middle of the night during a storm, the results were apocalyptic on a local scale. A massive wall of water tore through the sleeping city. In a matter of hours, entire neighborhoods simply ceased to exist. Streets, bridges, apartment buildings washed away. An estimated 11,000 people were confirmed dead. Another 9,000 remain missing to this day. Derna had approximately 90,000 residents. Now scale that scenario up by a factor of thousands. Apply it to a region housing hundreds of millions. And ask yourself, has the world ever actually prepared for something like that? Look, nobody is saying the Three Gorges Dam is going to fail tomorrow. Chinese engineers are monitoring it constantly. The government has poured enormous resources into its maintenance, and large concrete dams, when properly managed, can last for generations. But here's what's also true. Every dam ever built by human hands carries a finite lifespan. Every dam exists in a changing climate with shifting rainfall patterns and rising extreme weather events. And every dam, no matter how large or how proudly it stands, is subject to the same physical laws as everything else. The question isn't whether the Three Gorges Dam could fail. The question is whether the world, and the hundreds of millions of people living downstream, have a real plan for the day it does. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this if you think people need to know. And if you're new here, subscribe. We cover the stories that matter, whether they're comfortable or not.